We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid. I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial.
Well, that's where it's going. Former FBI director wants a trial. He's going to get it. Joining me now to discuss this and some other big stories we're tracking for you, Jason Miller, the former senior advisor, Trump transition team, Trump 2024 campaign. Good to have you, Jason. He's innocent, but we don't really know. We should be clear. We know the charges on the indictment, but we don't know the evidence. We don't know what else prosecutors may have on James Comey today. So as there's some outrage from the left, there's a reason why a grand jury chose to indict him, and possibly a lot more to learn here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an important reminder that nobody is above the law. And when we talk about James Comey, I think when we talk about these false statements that he made to Congress, we have to remember what he was making false statements about. So James Comey authorized the leaking of information, including classified information, either through his subordinates or, don't forget, the Columbia law professor, the Richmond. So these are multiple examples. And so when Senator Cruz asked him very directly, did you ever authorize the leaking of information? And he said no. There was no ambiguity in that. It was dead set that Jim Comey, as President Trump always says, he's a leaker, he's a liar, and this time he got caught. He got caught, and he's going to have to pay the piper on this. And so Jim Comey says, let's go and have a trial. Well, guess what? We're going to have a trial, and I don't think this is going to turn out well for Comey at all.
No, and I think you're right. Andrew McCabe said he was authorized. So someone here is lying. And like I said, there's a lot more that probably hasn't been revealed to us that they're looking at to use in trial. I want to talk about the way the left is characterizing it. No one is above the law. It was totally fine, Jason, and we covered this minute by minute here. When President Trump was facing indictments, Jack Smith, and they came after him, they changed the law in New York so someone could file a lawsuit against him, E. Jean Carroll. They twisted and they did acrobatics every single way. But now we have all the critics who are saying that this is vengeance. And President Trump was very clear today before he got to the Ryder Cup. This is what he says about justice.
It's about justice, really. It's not revenge. It's about justice. It's also about the fact that you can't let this go on. They are sick, radical left people, and they can't get away with it.
We know that clip will be played in a different way over on legacy media. But there was no outrage when President Trump was brought into a courtroom while he was also on the campaign trail. There was no question about whether or not maybe there was some vindictive people bringing these charges against somebody running for office.
Yeah, exactly. And national Democrats, as well as media who spent years attacking President Trump, they're all hypocrites. It's just as simple as that. They are hypocrites. They were fine to get behind it and cheerlead it when it was clearly lawfare going after President Trump, and the completely cooked up Russia hoax that we spent years going through. And Bianca, you remember this. Everyone watching this show remembers this. Literally 4 years, the entire first 4 years of President Trump's first term were consumed by whether it be the Russia hoax or some other hoax that they were going into. That was driven by people like Jim Comey. They knew what they were doing was wrong. They knew that they were promulgating the furtherance of this simply by leaking and lying and pushing false things. And just everybody should remember back to those final days of the 2016 race when he had the entire nation into chaos. Was he going to charge crooked Hillary with something? Was he not going to? What did all of this mean? Jim Comey has been playing games for years, and finally it's caught up to him.
Yeah. Are you tracking your reaction to some of the new news happening today? A judge has been assigned. It's a random assignment, but it is Judge Michael Nachmanoff, confirmed in 2021. He's had politically charged cases before. And he also, Ilana was saying that, Comey's son-in-law, a federal prosecutor, resigned after the indictment. So there's, it's a small world in these circles here. Anything you'd like to call out on some of these connections here? Obviously, Comey's daughter trying to get her job back as well as a prosecutor.
Well, I think simply, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not someone who is trying cases in front of the Eastern District of Virginia. But I will say that when you look, this very much is the legal deep state. This is the cabal that President Trump ran against. I mean, these folks are thick as thieves. And again, I don't know this particular judge, but I know that someone like Jim Comey, that the system, as it would be, is going to completely have Jim Comey's back. That's why the previous prosecutor who was in there, they had to go and move him out because they were obstructing justice being brought to a head here with Jim Comey. So I know it's going to be a challenge, but you know what? I'm a big fan of Lindsey Halligan, who President Trump has nominated to put into this position to lead the Eastern District. And she did a great job for President Trump during his defending him against the lawfare, including the illegal Mar-a-Lago raid. So if there's someone who can get this thing done, I think it's Lindsey.
All right, great. Let's talk about the UN. It was such a powerful week as President Trump really took everyone to task. You know, he's out there trying to solve conflicts and very successful in many. Unfortunately, Russia and Ukraine is lingering on. Today, he broke a little bit of news saying it looks like there might be a framework when it comes to Gaza. We're obviously anxiously awaiting more on that. But despite all of that, you know, we had these sort of visuals, the escalator that doesn't work, the teleprompter that goes out. I mean, President Trump handled it like a pro, but then we heard a day later that there was even the audio not playing. You know, the world heard his message, but it's important that the room inside also got his message as well. What do you make of sort of these glaring, let's just say, mistakes with air quotes around them that happened on a day that they knew was coming for a long time, Jason?
Bianca, in politics, there's no such thing as coincidences. And you take a look back at the Sunday Times of London this past weekend, and Katie Balls, the reporter, wrote a column with insight saying that they were actually talking about would there be hijinks or shenanigans around President Trump's visit. In fact, they even had the comment in there. And again, this is in the Times of London this past weekend. Would they stop the escalator? Or would something stop working? Clearly, somebody was behind the scenes doing this, and they weren't very smooth about it. I hope, as President Trump said, that they do look at the security footage. They do find that person and hold them accountable. But again, keep in mind, when President Trump goes in front of the UN, these are the folks who are actively working against Americans. These are folks who are pushing to try to, whether it be recognize terrorist entities or try to speak out against Americans or speak out against strong allies like Israel. And so this is why, by the way, I think Mike Waltz, who's now our U.S. ambassador to the UN, we need someone like him in there who's a bulldog, who's going to go and get that place straightened out and at least call balls and strikes and not let these knuckleheads try to pull one over on us all the time.
Yeah. Well, President Trump, again, at the center of so many big conflicts and trying to make peace. And it's clear today with Benjamin Netanyahu addressing the nation, the relationship there and the renewed call for releasing hostages is something that the pressure is on. Jason Miller, such a pleasure to have you today. Thanks so much. I hope you come back and see us soon.
Thank you.